Well, once you've had the vaccine, you have a feeling of, you're protected, which is, I think, very important. And as far as I can make out, it was quite harmless. And it was very quick. And I've had lots of letters from people who've been very surprised by how easy it was to get the vaccine. And the jab was it didn't hurt at all. It is obviously difficult for people to, if they've never had a vaccine, they ought to think about other people rather than themselves.
Talking of big problems, there's a YouTuber that I used to watch years ago, Tech. Her name's iJustine. She's got over 7 million subscribers. And I saw an article just this week about her on, I think it was Today, and it was crazy. So this girl, super fit, super healthy, but was taken to hospital. So this article is all about how she 5 months, it said she was bedridden, all these problems. And I was like, what? How can she be? She's super fit and healthy. What's going on? Well, let me just read out a couple of points from this article. Bedridden, sister had to brush her hair, brush her teeth for her. The result was blood clots, deep vein thrombosis, and thoracic outlet syndrome. Here we go. Why is it that we keep hearing this all the time? I mean, all the time. Where is all of this coming from? I'm not going to say it, but it's just, to me, it seems some common sense. Why was just recently, there was a marathon on. I've never heard of 100 people being taken to hospital in ambulance before. There's like a lot of problems going on with heart attacks and strokes and blood clots and all sorts of things at the moment. And I think that all this censorship around it should be dropped. And at least I mean, how many years on now? It's ridiculous. We need to start talking about this stuff.
Mysterious fibrous clots are showing up inside people who have recently died. Some embalmers say the clots are found in most corpses these days, and they've never seen anything like it before. And a warning that some viewers may find the images in this report disturbing.
Several embalmers across the country told the Epoch Times they've been observing strange fibrous clots in corpses they work with. They report the phenomenon started either in 2020 or 2021. They say the clots stand out because they're exceptionally big, at a maximum as long as a human leg and as thick as a pinky finger. The embalmers also say that clots in corpses have become much more common. One embalmer said he finds them in 50 to 70% of all corpses he works with these days, up from 5 to 10% prior to the pandemic. It's not yet known if the new clots are caused by COVID-19, the vaccines, or something different. However, many of the embalmers say from what they've found, it seems like the clots are connected to the vaccine. Some doctors speculate that the spike protein used in the vaccines can cause string-like structures which the body doesn't break down. The clots found are lacking iron, potassium, magnesium, and zinc, which according to experts shows that these aren't just normal postmortem clots, because normal human blood always has those nutrients.
And earlier today, I spoke with one such embalmer, Richard Hirschman from Alabama. He tells us more about discovering these clots and what compelled him to speak out. Richard Hirschman, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stefania. Glad to be here.
Now, tell me, why did you choose to share your findings?
Well, I decided to share my findings because I felt like humanity may be at stake. There's definitely something that has changed that I have noticed in the blood since the middle of last year, maybe around May or June of 2021. And it's been eating at me, and therefore I have to come out and speak to say, hey, something's wrong. Most doctors aren't going to see what I see, and I have to get it out there because I feel like...
Animation is brought to you by the Smart Image Base, a subscription website where you can download thousands of medical images and videos to use in lectures, courses, presentations, professional training, and more. For more information, click on the link in the description. mRNA vaccines for COVID-19. Vaccines are substances that protect you from harmful diseases. Most vaccines contain parts of weakened or dead germs that trigger your immune system to fight the disease. But mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 are different. They contain a substance called mRNA that teaches your cells how to make a protein that triggers an immune response. In order to understand how these vaccines work, it's important to know what mRNA is and how it normally makes proteins your body needs. Most cells in your body have a command center inside them called the nucleus. It contains genetic material called DNA that consists of instructions for building and maintaining your body. Proteins are one of the building blocks of your body. When a new body protein needs to be built, instructions for building it are copied from your cell's DNA and converted into a message called messenger RNA, or mRNA. Then the mRNA travels out of the nucleus to a protein-building machine in your cell called a ribosome. As the ribosome reads the message from the mRNA, it builds the protein your body needs. mRNA vaccines take advantage of this process to help give you immunity to COVID-19. Each vaccine contains special mRNA that provides instructions for your cells to build a harmless piece of the virus called the spike protein. The spike protein is found on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Each piece of the mRNA from the vaccine is wrapped in a protective coating. The vaccine is given as a shot in the upper arm. In the body, the mRNA particles enter your cells. Once inside the cell, the mRNA travels to a ribosome. Using the mRNA from the vaccine, the ribosome makes only a piece of the spike protein from the virus. After making the piece of the spike protein, your cell destroys the mRNA from the vaccine. It's important to know that the mRNA from the vaccine never enters the cell's nucleus or changes its DNA in any way.
Hello everyone, this is Dr. Mikhail Rashik of Neurogenomics, once again making an update video on the mRNA vaccines. And today I probably have one of the biggest and wildest news I can share with you when it comes to molecular biology impacted by either COVID-19 or vaccines. Definitely a game changer, so let's get started. Recently, just about a few weeks ago, this was in the first week of October, a research team from Sweden published information that showed in their human cells that they were studying that the spike protein can actually enter nucleus. And the reason why this is such a dramatic news and why it's such a game changer is the fact that obviously nucleus houses our genetic material, all of our DNA, almost all of our DNA. Mitochondria is the other place where you might find DNA. And what they also showed, and normally entry into the nucleus is supposed to be verboten, you're not supposed to be going inside there, precisely because you could potentially be modulating how we're using our genetics. Now, what did they discover is that once the spike protein enters the nucleus, it actually inhibits proper fixing of broken, damaged DNA. And they're specifically damage of DNA where you introduce double-stranded break, meaning really you break both strands of the DNA, you shear the DNA in half, you break it in half. And the way it does negatively impact how the DNA is being fixed is by somehow, it's still unknown, somehow interfering with how BRCA1 protein is supposed to be used in fixing that DNA damage. Now, BRCA1, if you mutate that gene, it's one of the highest predispositional mutations for cancer development that you can have, is mutations in this particular gene, precisely because BRCA genes code for proteins that are involved in fixing DNA damage, such as fixing DNA that's sheared in half. So this is clearly news of great significance, and it should not be taken lightly, should be reinvestigated, reconfirmed, because this could not be real news. No offense to the authors, that's just how science works. There is very frequently information that is discovered and published in science will turn out to be not true. That actually is very, very common, and that's why you need validation and revalidation before something becomes considered to be of truth, scientific truth. You need a lot of studies. The other protein that is also somehow prevent it from taking its action and helping fix the DNA once the spike protein enters the nucleus is this mysterious protein called 53BP1. It's not fully really known what that protein yet does. That's common for many of the genes in the human genomes. We're still characterizing much of that information. But it's believed that potentially that protein might be involved in binding to the broken ends of the DNA to prevent their religating or reconnecting to DNA from other sources. So basically making sure that two chromosomes that are not supposed to be linked together are not linked together. So why do the authors suspect this might be happening? They believe that potentially this is how the virus evolved this method in order to inhibit how our immune system responds in being able to combat infection. So keep in mind that when we produce antibodies or T-cell receptors, they can recognize pretty much any pathogen. So how do we achieve that? Well, the cells that are actually responsible for producing either the antibodies or the T-cell receptors, they can actually shuffle the genetic material that is responsible for production of these proteins, the antibodies or the T-cell receptors. So it cuts the DNA apart and then splice it in a variety of different manners, and that's how you can literally produce any amount of these proteins being able to attack any pathogen. So by spike protein entering the nuclei and preventing this from happening, what it actually in essence would be doing is preventing the development of diversity of response to the infection. And I think this actually is a good example of our typical, very broad, oversimplistic view of viruses and vaccinations, without the regard that we have to remember that these viruses, this family of viruses, have evolved with humans for literally thousands of years, and they have developed many specific tricks to be able to fight our own immune system in order to be able to effectively infect us and promote infections between ourselves, because that's all the virus wants to do, is it wants to spread, because that's the only way it can actually be produced, is once it infects one of us.
In 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that if a human is injected with a GMO, that they become a patented piece of property from the government.
Here you go. Y'all can look it up yourself. There's a bunch of pages to read, I'm telling you, cuz. This is some bullshit. This is their game right here. You can take away all your rights with mRNA. Fucking criminals.
U.S. Supreme Court strikes down human gene patents the 13th of June 2013 by Elliot Marshall and Michael Price. Big decision in an opinion written by Justice Clarence Thomas. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that human genes cannot be patented. But companies can patent complementary DNAs constructed in the laboratory. Backed by many geneticists and medical groups, the advocates sought to have myriad patents invalidated so that any lab could test without fear of a lawsuit for BRCA genes linked to breast and ovarian cancer. Daniel Ravacher, PUBPAT's executive director, celebrated today with a triumphal statement, saying, "The court rightfully found that patents cannot be awarded for something so fundamental to nature as DNA. Bottom line, diagnostic genetic testing is now free from any patent threat, forever, and the poor can now have their genes tested as freely as the rich. The impact of the decision on other companies may depend on exactly how gene patent claims are worded." While the court ruled out natural DNA patents, it also permitted CDNA patents. Although CDNA retains the naturally occurring exons of DNA, it is distinct from the DNA from which it was derived, the court wrote. As a result, CDNA is not a product of nature and is patent eligible. This split legal outcome is exactly what many observers predicted. It is also exactly what the Obama administration asked the court to deliver in a legal petition filed earlier this year.